Let me try to summarize some of these other points of human learning. The first is information has to be processed and practiced to be learned. We have some computer science folks here. This is what's called an information processing model of memory, or of the mind. And we've developed this, psychologists have developed an understanding of how the brain functions by creating artificial intelligence, creating programming computers, and that it's really been an interesting symbiotic relationship between computer science and cognitive psychology. So what this model tends to say is that we have a bunch of senses. You're being bombarded right now by my voice, by the vision, the screen, by the sound of the lights, by noises outside, by the pressure of your body against the seat. So you're being bombarded by multiple stimuli. And if you can focus and attend to my voice and the words up there, then you have a higher probability of encoding something into what's called a sensory register. That's the part of the brain that kind of stores stuff, and if we process it further, we can put it into what's called working memory or short-term memory. Short-term memory, working memory, is limited in duration and capacity. Most people can remember about 7 unrelated pieces of information for about 30 seconds unless you do something with it to process it into long-term memory. What is I'm not familiar with your phone numbers, but do your phone numbers have just a sequence of numbers, or do they have numbers with dashes? No dashes? Oh,
you can put the dashes. You can add them.
You can put the dashes.
Yes. If you want.
But you don't use
it. Normally we don't use them.
We don't use it. Yes.
Okay. You people are much smarter than Americans. You are much smarter because the telephone company in America realized that a whole sequence of numbers is very difficult to learn. But if we break up the numbers into chunks or into units, so these 7, 10 numbers, it's really a group of 3, a group of 3, a group of 4. So I'm really learning 3 things instead of 10 discrete numbers. It's kind of based upon, again, the ability of working memory to remember things. You remember, some of you, not many of you, but some of you are old enough to remember pay phones. Did you have telephones where you had to put money in and there was a phone book hanging down on a cord, so you wanted to call someone up and you look in the phone book, you find the number, you put your coin in the phone, you dial or you push buttons, and you answer, they're not there, you hang up, and you go, oh, darn it, you forgot the number. You got to go look it up again. Another example, you can remember 7, 8, 9 things for 30 seconds unless you do it. And then by the 5th time you made that phone call, you didn't have to look it up again. You processed it enough that it was in longer-term memory. So this chart kind of tries to illustrate that there are these different memory storages: sensory register, long-term memory, short-term memory, long-term memory. The more we do things, the better we can remember it, and then those things across the top, those are principles why you recognize certain corporate logos and did not recognize or remember other corporate logos. They were meaningful. Maybe you rehearsed it better, you said it over and over again, you were able to apply it. There are lots of reasons. Memory is kind of something that we have to work at. We have to put in and take out. Put in and take out. There's some research, and this can be scary or it can be very comforting to you, about long-term memory. Some research that indicates that if you've truly encoded something into long-term memory, it's permanent. It's there forever. The problem is retrieval. We haven't developed the retrieval cues to bring that information back out. All right, learning is an active community endeavor. Students have to do something for learning to occur. All these neural passageways in our brain, by putting information in, information travels across these neurons, axons, and the more it goes back and forth, the thicker those passageways become. And the easier it is to retrieve that information later. You know, there's an old saying, use it or lose it. That's true. There's another old saying that you need to exercise the brain. That's true. There's some research that says you, through your learning process, actually change the shape of your brain. You change what happens inside your brain. Let me give you an example. When I do this illustration, if I'm in America, I have a field of wheat. I've done it in Estonia, and it's a hill of snow. But here in Saudi Arabia, we have sand. All right? So I'm over here, and my friend Mohammed calls me up. He says, come visit, have a cup of tea. So I walk across the sand dune to Mohammed. We sit there, we have a cup of tea, we chat. I walk home. Again, I follow the path that I just laid out. But then he doesn't call me again for 6 months. And I said, I knew I walked across that sand dune. Let me just follow that path. When I go to find the path, you think I'm going to find it? No. But, so he calls me up and I make a new path across the sand, and we sit there and we have tea, and then I go home the next day and he says, James, come back. So I walk back, I go back, and then the next day I go home, and then he calls me back again. I do this for like a week. I go back and forth in a week. And then nothing happens. I don't see him for another 2, 3, 4 weeks. He calls me up. He says, come on, I got this interesting story. And I said, okay, I'll see if I can get there. I remember how to get there. Do you think my chances of finding my way back to Muhammad's house are higher or lower?
Higher.
They're higher. The path has been well worn. As long as there's no sandstorm that comes by. So that's kind of an illustration of what happens in the brain.
Sometimes
Encoding, decoding, putting information in, taking information out. Standing up on information. Stand up, please. Less than 45 minutes. Everyone, stand up at attention, put your hands up, reach to the sky, touch your toes.
This is a kind of punishment.
Bend down, touch your toes. Come on, bend down, touch your toes. Okay, have a seat, please. Now, I was speaking to one of your colleagues who will remain unnamed, who mentioned kind of the role of emotions in learning. Talked about the head, the heart, and the hands. If you think about those 3 H's, it's a wonderful way of thinking of things you have to do. You have to deal with the head. You have to do active learning things with the hand, get students to do things. But you can't disregard the role of emotions in the learning process. Emotional pathways in the brain are faster than logical pathways. Teacher actions and expressions are emotionally interpreted before they're logically interpreted. When you go into a teacher, your first thing is to look, you're forming some emotional attachments, making judgments. You're perceiving them in an emotional way before you perceive them in an intellectual, logical way. Emotional interpretation will flavor or even block logical interpretation. Can I borrow you? Can I come up here? Can I abuse you in front of your colleagues?
Okay.
Okay, so
Accepts.
carte blanche. Turn around. No, go down here. It's easier for me to abuse you. Come over here in the middle so everyone can see. So, I'm giving this lecture on thermodynamics, a wonderful lecture on thermodynamics. And we're sitting here, we're talking, and I'm strangling this gentleman. Your name is?
Muhammad.
Muhammad. We had tea and I already forgot who he was. So I'm strangling Muhammad. Is he listening to my wonderfully lucid theory of thermodynamics? No, he's not. Thank you. Look, round of applause. Obviously, the brain is attending first to survival stimuli. But then secondly, it's responding to emotional stimuli, and only third to intellectual or cognitive stimuli. It's kind of a survival mechanism that we've, trends that we've had for thousands of years, wherever long the species has existed. If the dinosaur is chasing you and you don't run away from the dinosaur, the dinosaur's not going to care about the fact that you're inventing the wheel. You're a dinosaur. So we need to think about when we teach the emotional environment that we create. Are we extending positive, welcoming invitations to our students? Or are we creating such a nervous, anxious environment that students can't focus on the learning because they're focused on the emotion? The next, all of these are important, but I'm just skipping some of them for you. Tell me what I am writing here on this. What do you see? A circle. No, you don't. It's a line that's almost a circle. The mind has a need for closure. We tend to organize stimuli the way in the past we think stimuli should be organized. We have a natural curiosity. It's one of the things that separates us from lower order animals. Not just our cognitive ability, but our curiosity about life. What if? There was a computer company called Hewlett-Packard, I guess they're still in existence, but they had a series of television commercials in the U.S. that started out, what if? What if you taught your class like what if? If students have this natural curiosity to find out, it's why we read mystery novels and watch detective stories. We're curious, we want to find out who did it. Maybe we need to start thinking about teaching like writing a mystery novel. Who did it? What's the story here? How's this come up? What if? Maybe if you start your class with some interesting, offbeat issue that you read in the newspaper, or there's some dilemma, or there's something that kind of defies logical reason that just happened. Introduce that as a stimulus They get students' curiosity peaked. What if? There's an interesting little side to this. Research shows that once we think we figure it out, it's hard to change our mind. Once we think we know the answer, we know the solution, we know the process to get there, it's difficult to think in a different way. That's also one of the challenges of teaching, is to dissuade people that they know it, to kind of get them to think about different approaches. That's one of the values of group work. When you put 4 people together to solve a problem, you will often find 1 or 2 just know how to do the solution. They just know the answer. And they do it, and all of a sudden it doesn't quite come out right. So you have to get people to entertain different ways of thinking. All right, what's this say? The brain's ability to make sense out of meaningless information. Perfect example of the mind's need for closure.
Why no spelling?
Amazing, huh?
Yeah. Amazing.
It's amazing to me.
The word is
As long as the first and the last letter are in the right place, the brain can figure it out. And it certainly works with the power of positive thinking, the impact of beliefs and expectations on behaviors. Well, I was working at an engineering school in Boston area, and the coach of the basketball team he had attended some workshop like this that I was giving. So he came up to me and he said, "James, would you work with my basketball team?" And I'm thinking, look at me, are you crazy? I'm going to work with your basketball team? And he said, no, you don't have to dribble or do anything. He said, I want you to work with my team on foul shooting. And then the women's coach heard this, and she got me to work with the women's team. And I said, okay, I'll try to do what I want to do. I'll do something that's called positive visualization, positive imaging. So I got the students to come, and sometimes individually, sometimes in a group of 2 or 3 students. And we wouldn't have a basketball. But I would have them to, in their mind, think about it. I'd go through a pattern. Okay, pick up the ball. Feel the little dimples on the ball. Rotate it. See the lines on the ball. Circulate it. Do whatever you're going to do. Bounce it 3 times. Get it again. Rotate it. Get your hand behind the ball. Crouch. Image. Vision. Sneeze. No. See yourself shooting. See the ball rotating in the air. See it hit the net. Hear the shh as it hits the net, the swish. See the net swing back. See the ball bounce. Let's do that over and over. Visualizing, building in positive expectations, not doing anything physical, everything mental. On average, those students improved their foul shooting 10 to 20%. Just by practicing, experiencing success, visualizing success. Some of you watched the World Cup recently, right? And some of us were not so fortunate to be in it, and some of us who were in it did not do so well when we were in it. We saw a lot of people taking penalty kicks, right, from the penalty track. Do you think they just practiced physically? Or do you think they went through any kind of emotional rehearsal? I know I'm going to get this. Of course they did. The goalkeepers, studied, had an idea. They rehearsed mentally. If Lionel Messi went up to that stripe and just, went up there and kicked without thinking about, without practicing, I don't know if he'd be as successful without years of practice, years of mental imaging, coaching. What we believe about our life tends to come to fruition. And this is the little engine that could. This is a classic children's book. If you've not read it to your little children, you should. I read this, I've read it to my children and my grandchildren. And it tells a story of this train bringing toys and goodies to children on the other side of the mountain. Well, the train breaks down. And it asks for help. Other trains come by and it says, "Can you help me, please?" And one train comes and it says, "I'm a passenger train. I'm too important to be carrying freight." Another one says, "I'm brand new. I don't want to scratch myself." Another one says, "I'm not strong enough to carry you up." But then this little engine says, "Okay, let me try. I think I can." And it hooks up the toys and goes, "I think I can. I think I can. And sure enough, it brings the toys and goodies to the children. The power of positive thinking. Great example for your children, for your students. If you think you can do it, if you work hard, it's going to increase the probability of you doing it. All right, maybe the last time I get you to stand up. Please. I want you to stand up and I want you to close your eyes. Stand up and close your eyes. I want you to take a deep breath and I want you to practice diaphragmatic breathing. I want you to breathe from your stomach, not your chest. Fill your lungs in, feel your tummy get big and round. Hold it for a few seconds. Exhale. One more time. Hold it, hold it, hold it. All right, put your two fingers together, start saying Om. No, sit down.
Could we address the story of the little engine
Yes.
as learning by trial and error?
Who is trying and who is erroring? Some people, the other engines aren't even trying.
Okay, but the little engine tried and
Succeeded.
Yes.
Yeah.
And succeeded.
So it could be trial and error, but in order for trial and error, there needs to be error.
Because trial
This
and
is a
error,
trial.
people could learn by trial and error.
Of
Even
course.
animals.
Of course they do. And this last principle, as you're designing your teaching, you need to think about feedback. One principle is test early and test often. Test early and test often. Feedback, have any of you seen or been in, I won't ask this because you get in trouble if you answer yes, but if you've been in a pub and you're playing darts, you've seen darts on TV, or you've seen the Olympics and they do archery, or the biathlon with people are shooting, you're shooting at a target. Well, where that arrow or bullet or dart hits that target gives them feedback so that they can adjust their next effort. We need that in learning. We need regular feedback for our students so they can adjust their studying and improve their learning. So feedback sends very powerful messages of change. That kid is probably going to interpret that feedback in a way he's not going to stick a knife in the electric socket again. Your library has access to a whole series of journals from the Wiley Library. Wiley Online Library, the Wiley Library Online. I've edited a number of journals, one of which is this one called Evidence-Based Teaching. Actually, the journal is entitled New Directions for Teaching and Learning. Comes out 4 times a year. Each issue has a special topic. So this issue was evidence-based teaching. Bill Buskus, Dr. William Buskus, my co-editor and author on this, will be here Sunday and Monday. He's doing a workshop on problem-based learning. He's excellent. If you have a chance to go to his workshop, much better than my workshop. Very good. So we put together, we asked, are there teaching systems? Are there not just teaching specific teaching behavior, but are there teaching systems that seem to have some empirical support behind them? And we found about 8 or 9 or 10, one of which was the lecture. Now most people badmouth the lecture. They say, don't lecture, don't lecture, don't lecture. I say, lecture, 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 but do it differently. Do it in a way that still has some active engagement. Do it in a way where students will listen for 15 or 20 minutes. You stop them, you give them a problem to solve, they work on it, they question, they ask their neighbor, they compare answers, you talk about it, you go back and lecture some more. All right, so very simple, engaged, it's called the engaged lecture. Problem solving, problem-based learning, medical schools do this. Bill Buskus is going to talk about that. Case study teaching, team-based learning, a variation of problem-based learning. Interteaching, very interesting technique where students are teaching other students. Service learning. Are you familiar with service learning at all? Service learning actually has 2 advantages. It helps students learn, but it also provides a service to the community. So if you're teaching a subject, you can engage with an organization, a community service, or something outside of the institution and require students to go and do something there that supports their learning. Not just volunteerism, but it's service to support learning. It's the application of what they're learning in class to real life situations. Very powerful, very more frequently being used. And it also, again, helps build value within the community of the institution. All right, so the community is seeing students, they're getting something out of this university, that's it, besides traffic congestion. Just-in-time teaching takes its name from just-in-time engineering, computer-aided instruction, online teaching. So there are alternatives. I show these to you to suggest there are alternatives to just doing instruction in one way. If you're interested, not only do you have access to this journal, it's free. The university subscribes to the journal. You can download, you can print any of these chapters, look at the whole range. Bill Buskus recently has the most recent issue of this journal is on international perspectives on master teaching. We did one prior to that this summer, just came out about a month ago, on student engagement. So they're focused on interesting topics, and they're free for you. I'm sorry?
What's the name of the journal?
The journal's name is New Directions in Teaching and Learning. New Directions in Teaching and Learning.